Hello friends! So, I have recorded a new tutorial. Some people claim that my tutorials are too long. To be honest, I tend to explain everything, so even a newbie could understand what is happening on the screen. I recommend you watching the entire tutorial series, and it doesn't matter if the videos are too long in someone's opinion. Friends, please just consider this as an investment to your education. Relax and follow the tutorials in a meditative way. The True Fighting Game engine gives you amazing possibilities, but we must know the tool if you want to use it in a professional way. In this particular tutorial, we will make quick and dirty sword attack for one of the characters in our fighting game. I have recorded this video as a support for one of our users who wanted to learn more about this. In one of the future tutorials, we will dive more in depth, as I am going to consider usage of both cold weapons and firearms, as well as fatal reactions of the opponent, as you may see in the video. But today, I am not even going to import special sword animations to the project, as I want to keep the tutorial as simple as possible, and I want you to be able to recreate it on your part without buying additional animation packages. But of course, if you like the idea and want to add such an option into your fighting game, you will definitely have to get an animation package containing special sword animations. As you may know, I have also started another tutorial series on how to create a basic UE5 fighting game without using the True Fighting Game engine. So you can check it out if you are not planning for now to build a production-ready game. Let me remind, the True Fighting Game engine is my project for Unreal Engine that allows you to create your own AAA class fighting games. You can easily add attacks, combos, and hit animations, import characters based on any skeletons, and create either single-player or multiplayer fighting games. You can check out my other tutorials in this playlist to learn how to do all of this. And with the True Fighting Game engine, you can create either Mortal Kombat style or Tekken style games depending on your needs. You can find the link to that project in the description below this video. And now let's start. So I open up a brand new Truefge project that I have just extracted to my hard drive. It has been loaded. Let's check it out. And now let's really quickly create a separate character, which will be almost exactly the same character as our base character, which is by default the Queen from Unreal Engine 5, but we are going to create on its basic character and arm it. We could actually just arm the default character, which is our Truefge base character, but let's try to keep it in accordance with the best practices. So our characters are placed in the content, blueprints, demo, characters folder. And let's right click, create a new folder here and name it Queen _ armed. Alright. And now we navigate to our blueprints folder and we right click the BP Truefge base character and we select the option named create child blueprint class, and let's name it BP Truefge Queen _ armed, and let's just left click it with our mouse and drag to our newly created Queen armed folder, and we select the move here option. So it is in a separate folder now, and let's open it up. First of all, let's give it its own name. You can check the previous tutorial. Each character has its own identifier. So we select the root BP Truefge Queen Armed, and at the right in the details tab we type the character and we see the character variable, and we just rename it to Queen_Armed. Alright? And we save and compile. And let's now add it to the engine really quickly. We go to the blueprints, miscellaneous, and open the blueprint named BP Truefge functions. And we open up the populate character map function. And if you remember, is the place where we add our characters. And we right click on this make map node and we select the add key value pair, and let's give it a name. Type here the same Queen Armed, just for clarity. And you remember it should be, this character is actually a child of our Queen character, so we just duplicate the node related to our Queen character. We select it and press Ctrl D on our keyboard, but instead the character blueprint that is currently the default BP Truefge base character, we select our blueprint named BP Truefge Queen Armed, which we have created a couple of minutes ago. And we drag a connection from the character to the value 3 pin, and we compile and save. And now we open up the BP Truefge game mode, and here instead of just Queen, we type the Queen_Armed. Alright, we compile and we save. And let's run the game. You see at the top left, character name appears. We have the Queen Armed. And now we are going to work with this particular character blueprint. We navigate back to the Queen Armed folder and we open up the blueprint. And first of all, we are going our character to handle the weapon, maybe sword, in its right hand. So we are going to work with our hitbox named top right box. It is currently assigned to the right arm, and when it collides with the opponent's main hitbox, it makes a damage. But when we will have a sword, we will want to change the position of this hitbox. So let's make it visible for now. We select it from the Components tab, and at the right in the Details tab, and in the Details tab it is currently hidden, so we type hidden, and we uncheck the hidden in-game option variable, and we compile and we save, and let's check it out. And alright, and now we see it. Now let's really quickly add a sword. In my case, it will be just use some component from the library. So in the Components tab, I click the Add button and I search for cylinder. Here is a cylinder, and I rename it to sword. Don't worry, scale it in a few moments. And we left click the sword component with our mouse and we drag it to make it a subcomponent of our mesh, right? And let's now scale it up to be more like a real sword. So we select it, and at the right in the details we make sure that the lock is unlocked, and let's scale it 0.1 by the x-axis and 0.1, no, maybe even 0.01 and 0.01 by the y-axis, and maybe let's make it a little bit longer and have it 1.3 z-axis, right? Well, I'm going to change it to make it more visible, maybe 0.03 and 0.03, 1.2. Alright, and we compile and save. And now we should assign it to somewhere. You know, if we select the sword, we can select its parent socket. And we actually have weapon sockets in our queen skeleton. Let's reset the relative location. We have just reset the relative location of the sword, and we could actually position it, but let's unparent it for a while and just create our brand new socket specifically for the sword. So we select the mesh, and at the right in the details tab we see this mesh and skeletal mesh asset, and it is our default SKM queen skeletal mesh. We click this little magnifying glass to find it in our content drawer, and let's open it up. And at the top right we select the skeleton, and let's find the right arm, right hand. Alright, here we have the bone named hand R. Let's collapse all the children, and you see we have this bone named weapon R. But let's create a new socket specifically for our sword. So we right click the hand R and we select the add socket option, and we select it. And here at right in the details, let's rename it to send sword socket. Right? And just for convenience, we will rotate, change its relative rotation. I have experimented with it. It will just be. So I'll expand the relative rotation, and I set its relative rotation to be 90 by the x value, and we set the relative rotation by z-axis to be 270. Right, and you can just manually change its relative location be somewhere here. You can experiment with this, and you may place it somewhere where our sword should be handled. Alright, yes, and it's pretty good, and we save. And now, I don't know. And now we just select this sword and we set its parent socket to be third socket. Right? We compile and we save. We may now just play with its relative location and rotation. I believe we should rotate around the x-axis, and it should be something like 90. Alright, and you see this blue z-axis. Let's y-axis. Alright, and it handles it not ideal, but it is just a draft. Let's compile and save. Let's see what happens. It's pretty dirty. We should actually have a specific animation for our sword movements. Let's for now save everything. Let's now open back our SK mannequin skeletal mesh. And what we are going to do, we want to also add one more socket, because we may want our sword to be either unarmed or armed. So let's find, I don't know, maybe it should be pelvis or spine 01. Let's select the spine 01, right click, and add one more socket, right? And let's rename it in here at the right in the details tab. Let's name it sword underscore unarmed socket. I'll move it somewhere here. Let's rotate it as well. Let's set its relative rotation to 90 by the x-axis and 270 by the z-axis. Alright, try to align it a little bit, and we will place our sword this socket by default, but when we want to perform an attack when our character is armed, it will draw the sword. Now we'll arm the character's right hand with the sword. So for now, let's go to our BP Truefge Queen Armed blueprint and select the sword. But I will just remember the sword position when it belongs to the sword socket is minus 42. And it is the y-axis. I will write it down just for the future. Alright, and now let's change its default socket to be sword unarmed socket. Alright, but let's reposition it to move to look more natural. And right, just manually, let's suppose it is our unarmed position of our sword, and we compile and we save. Let's check it out. So now we want to somehow equip and unequip the sword during our before and just after our armed attack. So let's do this really quickly. We open the BP Truefge Queen Armed once again. We select the sword, and I just want to remember all of these values, location and rotation, in its unequipped state. I'll just print screen and paste it into my cheat sheet, because we are going to adjust it every time we equip and we unequip. Now at the top we go to the event graph, and let's create two new events. So we right click anywhere on the empty space, and we start typing custom, and we select the add custom event, and for the first event we name it equip. Alright, and let's create one more event, add custom event, and we name it unequip. And here at the left, under the variables section, let's add just a new boolean variable and name it is sword equipped. Right? We compile, and by default it is set to false. By default we have our sword unequipped. Now let's implement our first custom event. We drag the sword component from the components tab and drop it to the empty space in our event graph, and we drag a connection from the output pin, and we type attach component to component. Alright, and we drag a connection from the equip to the entry point. And do you remember, in our equipped state we have created for it a socket named sword underscore socket. So here under the socket name variable we type sword underscore socket. Alright. And the parent should be the mesh itself. And we keep all the locations and rotations relative, but we want to set a new relative location and rotation. Do you remember for our sword equipped socket we have positioned it in an appropriate way? It was rotated by 90 degrees by the x-axis, and the y-axis was set to -42. So from the sword we drag a connection and we type set relative, and we choose the set relative location and rotation function, and we connect these two nodes. And for the rotation we type 90 for the x, and for the location for the y we type -42. Let's set our isSword equipped boolean variable to be true. Right. Now let's just really quickly test if it is working. We right click, we type keyboard, and we select the key character 1, and when pressed we first check. We create a branch, and we drag and drop our isSword equipped variable, and we set the not. We type not boolean, and if this construction, if this sword is not equipped, then we fire the equip event. Let's compile and save. And for our AI spawner, let's for now set the option named training dummy to be true, so it doesn't distract us with its attacks. And we save everything, and we run the game, and we press the 1 on our keyboard, and you see the sword is equipped in a magical way. For now we are not going to specify animations to draw the sword and to unequip it, but for now you see it is being equipped in a magical way. I just press 1 and it is getting equipped. Alright, now let's implement the unequip functionality, and we do almost the same, and we can even just duplicate these nodes that come after the equip, so Control D. Alright, but this time we unequip the sword, so we are going to move it to attach it to our, we go to the SKM Queen skeleton. We want to attach it now to the sword unarmed socket, and we type here sword unarmed socket. Alright, and you remember we have remembered our locations and rotations for that position. I'm going to take a look. Alright, and what about the rotation? 78 and 7 and 50 and 6. And 50 and 6 for the z-axis. And here, where we set our boolean isSword equipped, we set it to be false. And now we go back to our branch, and if the sword is equipped, alright? we call the unequip event, and we compile and save. So now we are pressing 1, and we equip and unequip the sword in a magical way without specific animations, but it is alright for now. Now, what we are also going to do, you see, when our sword is equipped, our top right hitbox is still attached to the right arm, but we would like it to be attached to the sword itself. So, if we hit the enemy with our sword, top right hitbox could damage our enemy. Let's try to do it somehow. So we go to the viewport, top right box. And now we go back to our event graph and we drag the top right box to the empty space near the equip event. First for the equip event. And now we are going to attach it to our sword instead of the right hand. So we drag a connection from the top right box and we type attach component to component, and as a parent we select our sword. Alright, and let's see how does it work. I cannot see it. And for the scale we should select the keep world. But you see, we should you see that hitbox is not aligned in a proper way. So let's set the relative location and rotation for the top right box. We drag it and drop once again here, and we drag a connection and we type set relative rotation. Okay. Set relative location and rotation for the top right box. Yes, and I believe we should change the rotation by the x-axis to 90 degrees, and I believe for the z-axis as well. And as I remember, there should be something like -42. So let's set the relative location. Let's try to set the x to 0 and the y to 90 and the z to 0. All right. Let's see what happens. And let's also increase. And I believe I got messed with the axis. So let's set the y-axis back to 0 and the z-axis to -50, and let's check what happens. So let's set the z-axis to -21. We compile and we save, and we now see the right hitbox is now attached to the sword. Let's try just to perform some of the default attacks, maybe with the right hand. Alright, and now when we unequip the sword, we are going to do almost the same. So, when the sword is unequipped, under the unequip event. After the last node, we drag a connection. Let's drag the top right box from the components to our editor and drag, and we start typing attach, and we select the attach component to component. And as the socket name, we type hand_r here, as we should attach it back to our right hand. So let's test it out. Hop, 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 hop. But do you remember we have changed its rotation? So when attaching to the hand, let's set the relative rotation and location as we have saved it. And I have saved it in my cheat sheet. So let's drag the top right box and drop it. Set relative location and rotation. And do you remember we have previously set it to 90. Now we set this rotation just to 0, and 5 should be good. And we compile and we save. And let's now check it, run the game, and we equip and we unequip. And you see, when we equip the hitbox, it gets attached to the sword. And when we unequip, it is being attached back to the right hand. Great. Now we are ready to create an attack with the sword. And now it's time to add a sword attack. Friends, I do have a package containing special sword attack animations. But for the sake of this tutorial, I am not going to add these animations to the project, because I want you to see the principle and to be able to recreate all of this on your own part. So I'm just going to make it quick and dirty using the default attack animations, which are already included into the true fighting game engine. It will look awkward, but it will work and give you the understanding of the principle. Of course, if you decide to add cold weapon attacks while developing your own game, you will want to import some animation packages containing specific sword animations. So, what are we going to do now? We open up our content drawer and we go to the demo characters queen fighting animation, and we open up the attack root motion folder, and we want to find a kind of attack that is at least somehow similar to an attack with a sword. And I think that this one is what it could be. Oh, if the sword could be placed here, it would be something very similar to a sword attack. Alright, so we now need to create an animation montage. So we right click the attack animation sequence, we go to create and we select the create any montage. And we rename it to right hand toward UE5 montage, right? And we save all. And let's now select it with our left mouse button and drag it to our montages folder and drop it here. We select the move here option. And let's now open up the folder. I forgot about one thing. We should make sure, let's open this newly created animation montage and make sure that the slot is set to the default group full body. Is what our all attack montages are supposed to be, because it is how it is being processed by the animation blueprint. Alright, and now let's add an attack. If you have followed the previous tutorial series, you may already know how to do that. We go to the blueprints folder, we open up the BP Truefge settings. We select the movesets under the variables section, and we expand the punch queen moveset as it belongs to all the characters based on the UE5 skeleton. We could actually create a separate moveset for this armed character. It was also covered in one of the previous tutorials, but for now, just for clarity and to make it really quickly, let's do it. So let's rename it to the move to sword attack. It doesn't actually matter, but let's keep it clean. As the animation montage, let's find our sword, right hand sword montage. Alright. As the tag type, we could actually select any. We even have this head fatal attack type as a supply, but for now we can just select cyan high right strong. If you remember, the attack type is linked to the attack reaction of the opponent, so different attack types are being followed by different hit reactions. Let's make it a really fatal attack, so let's set the attack damage to be 500. By default, the health of a character is 300 in the true fighting game engine. We set it to 500 to kill to make this attack fatal. And as the hitbox, we select the right hand, because you remember that we are using the top right hitbox for a sword attack. And we compile and we save. And let's now see what happens. Now, before we are running the game, let's navigate our demo character's mannequin. It is our opponent. And let's open its blueprint and let's select its main hitbox. Let me remind, the attack gives a damage to the opponent if the attacking hitbox and top left or top right or low left or low right is colliding with the main hitbox of the opponent. So let's for now make the hitbox of our opponent visible. At the right in the task with start typing hidden, and we uncheck the option to make it visible. And now let's run the game, and you see the hitbox. And let's arm our character, and let's try to attack. I just press the U button on my keyboard, and you see nothing is happening because the hitbox of the sword is not colliding with the main hitbox of the opponent. If we unarm, the hitbox gets back to our right hand and it works just fine, but that's not what we want it to behave like. So, as I have already said, we're going to make this quick and dirty. So let's just reposition the sword to be placed in the hand of our fighter in a more natural way. I mean, it should be placed horizontally and placed towards the enemy. We just go to our queen armed character blueprint. And if you remember, in the equip event, we have customized the rotation and location for the sword to look more natural in the hand of the character. But for now, we will make it really awkward and ugly, but that's not a problem, I believe. I really believe. I hope we believe so as well. So we set the new rotation X to 0 and new location Y to 0, but we set the new location Z to -42, right? And we compile and we save, and let's check it now. Let's arm. Right, and it looks now like Freddy Krueger, and I don't know, fighting bot, but the sword is in a more useful position now, so let's try to attack. Our enemy is flying away, and that's because we didn't have set a proper collision options for our sword, and it is currently acting like a world dynamic with the full collision. Let's tune it up a little bit. So let's open our BP Truefge Queen Armed. Let's select the sword. Let's type and inside the collision presets, we set the custom, and as the object type and as the collision enabled, we select query only, no physics collision. All right. And let's also set these conditions to be just like in our mesh. So you see this collision responses, what we ignore, what we overlap, what we block. And we only block the world static objects, and we overlap world dynamic and physics body. And we ignore all the other collisions, and we compile and we save. You can actually play with this depending on your goals. It is the default settings, but you may want other behavior when colliding your characters, so you might play with this. And so now let's check it out. I run the game and I attack. It should save all. And you see. But now, what if we wanted to equip and unequip the sword automatically depending on an attack? Because we do not want to spend our time every time to equip, to press the one button to equip and unequip the sword. And we are going to do this right now, automatic equipping and unequipping the sword during the attack montage. To do so, we open up our content drawer, we go to the characters, select the Queen Armed folder, right click and create a new folder and name it anim notifies. And inside that folder, we right click on empty space and we create a new blueprint class. In the search string, we type anim notify and we select the default one and we press the select button and we name it sword equip underscore an. An means abbreviations of the anim notify. All right, and let's select it and press Ctrl D on our keyboard, and let's name this second one to sword unequip. All right, save all, and now let's open the sword equip anim notify. And we have three overridable functions here, and we click the drop-down list. We select the received notify function to override, and from the mesh comp we get the owner get owner. All right, it is the owning blueprint of the mesh that have sent the notify, and we cast it to our armed BP Truefge Queen Armed character blueprint. and we connect the output execution pin of the received notify to this new cast. If cast failed, we do nothing, but if cast is successful, we drag a connection, and we should call the event named equip, right? And we just connect the output execution pin to the return node, and we compile and save. And now we open our content drawer, and we open up the sword unequip anim notify blueprint, and we override the received notify function, and from the mesh comp we drag a connection, and we get owner, and we add this node, and we cast it to our green armed character blueprint, and we connect the execution pin to this execution pin. And here, as the BP true FGE queen armed, we look for the unequip event, alright? And we connect these two execution pins, and we compile and save. And now we can easily call this animation notify events from any of our animation montages. So if saying you have a professional pack with the sword animations, you will have there saying an animation named draw the sword or unequip the sword and attack, and you can create from them a montage. The first section would be draw sword, the second section will be attack, and the third section will be unequip the sword, and you will call the sword equip in the first section and sword unequip in the last section. But for now we are going to do this without using those special animations, as I have said. So the sword should be drawn in a kind of a magic way, just automatically, when we start this attack. So we go to the queen, fighting animations, attack root motion montages, and we open up our right hand sword queen animation montage. And at the very beginning, inside the notifies, under the notifies track, we right click and select the add notify, and first we call the sword equip anim notify. Somewhere after the attack is performed, we right click, add notify, and we select the sword unequip anim notify. Alright, and we save. And let's now test it. So I do not press the one key on my keyboard to equip and then unequip. I just press the U button, which means attack, and let's see what happens. You see, it equips and it unequips. You see, the hitbox is currently attached to the right hand, but when I'm attacking, it is instantly being reattached to the sword, and after the attack is finished, it is being reattached back to the right arm. So, look. And that's basically it for today. In the next video, we are going to talk about camera behavior during the winning animations are being performed by the winner character, because I had a request for this. And friends, please don't hesitate to request new topics for the tutorials, so I could have ideas to what to record what videos to record in the future episodes. And that's it for today. I hope you liked it, and see you next time. Bye bye.